Hello, how are you? We're now back at Halacha 5.5 of the global study of Maimonides. Yesterday was kind of a cliffhanger where Maimonides left off with this conundrum of free will versus predeterminism. How is God able to know what we are going to choose, and yet at the same time we have the reality of choice? I mean, how is that philosophically possible? So this is the final halacha in chapter 5 where Maimonides will deal with it. It's rather a long halacha, so we're just going to do the one. Perhaps you will say, but does the Holy One who is blessed not know all that will occur in the future? And before that, God knows that a certain person will become righteous or wicked? Does God know this or not? If God knows that he will become righteous, then it would be impossible for that person not to become righteous, right? God knows this is going to happen. How can a person step off that track? And if you will counter by saying that God knows that we'll become righteous, but that there is a possibility the person might nevertheless become wicked, then God would not know the matter with certainty. And by the way, if God does not know something, that implies an imperfection in God. If God is not sure, God is lacking some kind of knowledge, God forbid. So we can't accept that. God, as the only God worth worshiping is a perfect God, perfect in every way. And if God is lacking something, then how is it possible that we can worship God? So that's the question. Know that the answer to this question is as broad as the earth and as deep as the sea. Many great principles and high mountains depend on it. Yet you must know and understand what I say, says Maimonides. I have discussed this in the second chapter of the laws of the foundations of the Torah, Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah, that the Holy One who is blessed does not perceive knowledge as something external to God, in matter that human beings know things as being different from themselves. Right? Maimonides is now going to pivot the argument away from our premise to say it's not so much an issue of whether God knows or not, it's an issue of how we perceive the epistemological challenge of knowing. We know things as being external to ourselves. For example, I know that this is my cell phone right here. There's a picture of my son and grandson on the screensaver there, which is kind of cute. Anyways, my son-in-law and grandson. So I know this cell phone is right here, but I know this as somehow external to myself. The cell phone is not me. The cell phone is, the awareness of the cell phone is something that I possess, but not the cell phone. The cell phone is outside of me. Rather, the blessed God and God's knowledge, says Maimonides, are one thing. As Maimonides says over there in Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah, God's knowledge, the act of God's knowing, and the thing that is known are all one thing. Right now, that's a very complicated thing to hold in your mind, but perhaps I can give you a metaphor. Let's just read one more sentence. So, this is something that the human mind cannot grasp with clarity. Just as a human being does not have the power to understand and comprehend this truth about the Creator, as it is written in Exodus, "For no person may see me and live," so too it is not within the power of a human being to understand and comprehend the mind of the Creator. This is what the prophet wrote in Isaiah, "For my thoughts are not like your thoughts, and your actions are not like my actions," says God. This is so. Since this is so, we do not have the power to know how it is that God knows all creations and their actions. So here's a metaphor that helps me understand it a little bit. And maybe it's kind of like an echo of what Maimonides thought means. Think of a dream, right? Like when I'm having a dream at night, let's say I'm dreaming about eating cholent on Shabbos. In my dream, I am actually eating cholent, and I'm enjoying the smell, and I'm enjoying the texture, and I'm enjoying, of course, the taste, and I'm enjoying my family around me on Shabbos and things like that, and it's all actually happening. But at the same time as I am perceiving this, I am owning it. The dream is actually inside my brain. I do not understand it as something outside of me, because I think How is that so? I mean, I understand, I perceive it as something outside of me. I do not understand that it is actually inside of me at the same time. I am the dream. I am in the act of dreaming, and I am the dream itself. It's all happening within my mind, and I don't realize that. God, in some way, is like the dreamer, and we are God's dream. The entire universe is contained within God's dreaming, although God is, of course, entirely lucid. This is not a something that he is somehow disabused of the reality of the fact that we are within his mind, so to speak. This is all really bizarre and strange philosophical stuff. But this is, by the way, one of the indications that Maimonides was deeply aware of Kabbalistic traditions, and even though in the vast majority of his writings he shies away from explicit discussion of mysticism, nevertheless, this idea of God being the knower and the knowledge and the thing known at the same time, fascinating. It's definitely very Kabbalistic in nature. But so we're just going to have to leave it at this point and say that it's beyond our ability to understand it, and bringing it back to our central point, which is that even though we can't understand free will, nevertheless we posit as an article of faith that we do have the reality of free will, and at the same time God knows what we're going to choose. We know this with a certainty, says Maimonides, however, that a person's actions are within his power to control, and that the Holy One who is blessed does not entice him nor decree upon him to perform any particular act, whether it's do something or refrain from doing something. We will see, incidentally, some interesting exceptions to this rule in the next chapter. We know this not only from received wisdom, but also from clear logical proof. Because of this, the prophet said that a person is judged according to his actions, whether good or evil, and this is an essential point upon which all prophecy depends. Whew, that was a tough chapter. Okay, tomorrow we're going to begin with chapter 6, which looks at the privilege of doing Teshuvah, and conversely, those from whom the privilege is removed. Thank you very much for listening.